Hello, everyone. It's Melissa from Gilda's Club, Grand Rapids, and today I'm in the clubhouse, which is great and feels really good. We hope that we find you today well and enjoying spring, maybe little April showers already in March, and being well and getting ready probably for spring break. Some of you are. So if you're new to Gilda's Club or new to a cancer or grief journey and you'd like to know more about Gilda's Club and our free support community, we would love to talk with you. Please give us a call at 453-8300 or look us up on our website, gildasclubgr.org. And if you're watching this, we'd love you to give us a thumbs up. We love those thumbs up. If you have questions for any of our speakers or for Gilda's Club, you can post those right in this live and let us know, and we'll make sure that those questions get to our speakers today. And if you really enjoy or really felt like it was helpful, this information that we're going to talk about, we love you to share this post. And so it'll post as a recording, probably in about an hour, and then you'll be able to share that on your social media. And if you want to go back and look at it again, it's also in our archived section on our website and our YouTube page, and it'll be also on our Facebook page for a while. So there's lots more of them too, and you can look at all of those. So today we want to just make a note and let you know that today we're going to be talking about a sensitive topic. We're going to be talking about infant death and miscarriage and the grief journey of one woman that you'll meet here and her family and how they've dealt with that experience. So we know that this is sometimes difficult to talk about, difficult to hear. If you find yourself having a response to this topic, we urge you to take good care of yourself, to take some deep breaths, to take a break from the webcast, or to turn it off if you need to. We give you full permission to do whatever it is that you need to do to take care of yourself. This will be, as I said, recorded, and so you'll be able to go back to it if you really want to finish it later, if you can't finish it today. So I think that's about it. So I think we might as well dive in, and I'll introduce our speakers. So today we have Rachelle Sova, and she is married to Josh Sova, and she has 3 living children, Grace, Owen, and Claire, not the Claire that's on here. And a probably much younger Claire, not much, you're very young, Claire. She came to Gilda's after her infant son died, Wyatt. He passed 6 hours after birth in July of 2014. He died from, I'm going to try it. So she told me she'd give me $20 if I said it right, but I didn't say it right the first time. So I'm going to try it again. Holoprosencephaly.
Correct. Good job.
Okay. So after that experience, she had 2 miscarriages, and then their youngest, Claire, arrived between those miscarriages. She's on the board of the Maternal Wellness Program, which began as a resource from postpartum depression. In 2019, one of the founders asked her if she'd be willing to facilitate a perinatal loss group with her, and so she facilitates that group. And I think right now that's a virtual group, and we will be posting that link to that on this post. So you'll be able to, if you're interested in connecting with them, you'll be able to do that through there. She also is a member at Gilda's for 8 years, and she's been participating for some of that time, I don't think the whole 8 years, in our weekly parent grief support group. So welcome, Rachelle. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. I do have to make one correction.
Yes.
Rachelle. not Rachel. I get it all the time, so no worries. Nobody
Did
ever
I
gets
say
right.
Rachel?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rachelle. Okay.
Yeah, it's really nice to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for being willing to talk with us and share with our members and the public your story and your passion. So, yeah, Rachelle. So I apologize. Some things you just don't even hear yourself saying.
Yeah.
So we also have Miss Clare Portinga, who is the Vice President of Programming here at Gilda's Club. And she also has facilitated this parent support grief group for how long now, Claire?
I think maybe over 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
good to have you with us, Claire.
Thank you for including me, and it's great to see Rachelle.
That's great. Well, we might as well just dive right in, okay? And so, Rachelle, I wondered if you'd be willing to share your story with us, what that was like, and yeah.
For sure. I think one of the things that people think is that it's too sensitive of a subject and they don't want to bring up your loss. And it's quite the opposite for most people. They want to talk about their children. People didn't know their child, so they want people to know their child. So it's actually a great honor for me to talk about Wyatt. That's one of my favorite things to do. So, where to start? The beginning of the journey, I guess, starts with a little bit of infertility problems, nothing too huge. I took some Clomid and a couple other things that we had to try. It took me a year to get pregnant with my daughter, who's now 18. And then when we started to try for another one, it took 3 years, just trying different things and that kind of thing. So if anyone has ever been on Clomid, they'll get what I'm saying here. After my son was born, my husband and I both agreed very quickly that we were not going to do that again. Hormones like up to here when you're on that, and it's terrible. So we just, kind of said, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So about 5.5 years went by, and I actually went to the doctor because I thought I had an ulcer, and I had all the symptoms of an ulcer. The doctor thought the same thing. She said, yes, I believe you're right. She handed me the referral for an endoscopy or, all that stuff. And then right at the end of the appointment, she said, you know what, we better do a pregnancy test. And there were different reasons why it really wasn't likely for me to be pregnant at that time. But she said, you know what, we better just make sure. So it ended up being positive. And it was the most wonderful surprise, I think, just not thinking that will ever happen. And, just such a shock, but such a great shock. So I did not have an endoscopy. I scheduled an appointment with OB, and things were pretty good. I had some spotting, so I had some early ultrasounds, and it turned out I was about 8 weeks along already. So,
Wow.
Yeah, so about 3 weeks went by, and I had some spotting again, and had another ultrasound. And by this time, it was 11 weeks. And when they pulled up the ultrasound screen, just such a wonderful woman was there doing that. And she was so compassionate, and she said, there's something wrong. I need to call a doctor in. I was very thankful that she was like upfront with me. I've heard a lot of stories where they try to hide it, and then it's just a big surprise for people. But the doctor came in, and it was very clear right away that Wyatt had holoprosencephaly, which is it's something that happens within the first 2 weeks of conception. Your brain divides into two hemispheres, and holoprosencephaly is when that does not happen. And there's different severities. Wyatt had the worst, called alobar, where it did not divide at all. So he basically had a brain stem, but nothing else. That was all. So they scheduled us with maternal fetal medicine, and we were given the option to terminate. We did not feel like that just wasn't something that we wanted to do. So we were told that I would most likely miscarry at some point, or he would pass during delivery, usually. So I went on with the pregnancy. I tried to do everything a mother would do with her son. And I would have liked to have seen or like heard what people said about me, because here I am pregnant, I'm sledding down hills, you know. I remember, you know, he was born in July, and it had to have been the end of June, and we went to the beach, and it's something that we like to do is to, you know, play catch with the football. So, you know, we're playing catch with the football, and I'm like very pregnant and catching the football, and at one point it hit my stomach, right? And you know, and I'm sure people thought I was crazy, like, look at that terrible mom. But what they didn't know is that I was trying to have somewhat normal memories, you know, with a son that I wouldn't get those with.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about between 3 and 4 weeks early. My water I started leaking my amniotic fluid. And so they had to induce me. I had a wonderful nurse. She made me laugh the whole day. She was very loving, and she just brought this piece of laughter into my life that it was just right. You know, it was healing. It wasn't, you know, she wasn't trying to hide from what was going on. She was right there with me. And he ended up surviving through delivery, and he lived for 6 hours, and we got to hold him. I was so amazed that, you know, they tell me he has no brain, and yet, like, he cooed, he held our finger, he recognized my voice, things that I would say while I was pregnant. He would, you could just see the recognition, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing to me. We tried to donate. They said that we were able to donate his liver, but he did not have enough oxygen in his blood. So we weren't able to do that, which, looking back selfishly, I'm glad, because they would have taken him right away, and we wouldn't have had that time even after his death, you know, to be with him. So everything, I guess, worked out how it should have for us. Yeah, and that's kind of it. I do have to say that I am someone who grew up, you know, you do things on your own, right? And every OB appointment I had, my doctor, she's so sweet, and she would hand me a referral to see a therapist every single appointment. And I'd say, no, I got that. Like, you know, I have a lot of support, you know, I've got this. And, but I was concerned about my living children. And I had read statistics that if children, you know, don't deal with their grief in a good way, there can be lasting effects to that. So I found Gilda's Club, and I could have swore that I read somewhere that parents did not have to go to a group. They could just kind of hang out in the grounds, right? But
We
that
tricked
that was my plan. So to anyone out there, yeah, I don't know if you can really do that or not. No, I'm kidding. You can. But I think whoever assumed that we were there for group as well, and they just kind of led us up in a group. And the whole way there, I was, freaking out in my mind, like, I don't want to go. I don't want, it turned out to be the best thing for me. So I'm glad.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that story. What a beautiful honoring of just what is.
Yeah.
That you lived. And I so love the story of you doing all of those things that you would want to do with him, and that normalization of your relationship with him. And what a beautiful, I hope some people saw you and wondered what was going on, and yeah, and saw how brave and wonderful that is. Yeah, really cool. So yeah, can you oh, I have Claire. I would, it seems like it's not a good placement for it, but you use the term perinatal death, and I wondered, is there a difference between infant death and perinatal death, or what exactly that means?
Is that for me or Claire?
Yeah, that's for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So perinatal death is the death of a child, whether it's through miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, having a stillborn child, or I believe the definition is of like the first year, or not year, first month of life for an infant. So it's anywhere from conception to the first month of life.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay. Claire, can you tell us what you've heard in groups as unique challenges to individuals and families who have experienced this perinatal death?
Yes, and Rachelle, feel free to jump in at any point and elaborate or correct or anything you see fit. But a lot of times we consider perinatal death and early infant death to be a disenfranchised grief. And I know this term, but I went and looked up the word disenfranchised, and it means to be denied a privilege, to be denied a right that others have. And that's what I see parents experiencing from our culture, either explicit messages or implicit messages that you don't have the same right to grieve, or the right to grieve at the same depth or same length of time as parents who lose older children. And there's almost a suggestion that the child is replaceable, or if you're still in childbearing years, that you can have another, is a message that some people directly get, and that would somehow replace your child, or that your child maybe is less valued because of their age or their developmental stage. So that is a common dilemma and message that our culture sends, which is what makes groups so great, because you can be with other people who understand what you feel. Your grief can be validated, and you can understand that the depth of your grief and the length of your grief is completely legitimate.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah. Rachelle, did you ever feel disenfranchised in this experience?
Yeah, I feel that in that way, my miscarriages were more so like that. I feel I feel like people were able to see pictures of Wyatt and, you know, they saw a baby, but I feel like it's even more lonely when it's through miscarriage, because I think even more so, it's almost like what isn't seen can just be shoved aside almost, you know. I don't think a lot of people just really want to just go there, you know. I don't know. But I felt like that was a lot more lonely because of that.
You know, I myself have experienced a miscarriage, and I was 10 weeks along, and it took me a while to get pregnant. I had to have surgeries and whatnot. And I felt that too, is that people, even my oncologist, or not oncologist, my OB, very sweetly, but just said, was just looking to the next time to get pregnant, just really passing over the experience that I was having. And it wasn't just the miscarriage, but it was all the hopes and dreams and all of everything that came into me being pregnant. That was such a miracle. And then to have this loss, that I think that people were not addressing. And I remember even someone handed me a baby right away. And so this was our first time getting pregnant. Someone handed me a baby, and I all of a sudden, I just didn't even know what to do with this child in my arms, and was just like handing the baby back because I just wasn't ready for it. And I needed time. And I don't think I learned that until later in life, where I was able to bring our living children in to have this this moment of memorial for our first child. So yeah, there is this piece of deep loneliness, I think, and non-conversation that happens.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think you brought up a really important piece of it, that people are very excited for you when you get pregnant after
Yeah.
loss. But what I don't think they know is what goes into a pregnancy after loss. And, you know, there's a lot of anxiety with that. You're not naive anymore, right? Because you know what can happen. You're always waiting for that to happen, even though you try to have positive thoughts about it. You know, it's easier said than done, right? And it's actually a very difficult process. And, you know, I had my 4-year-old Claire, you know, after Wyatt and after a miscarriage, and it was really hard. I was an emotional wreck at delivery. I had always had natural births, and she was my first epidural because I didn't have the emotional strength to do that. You know, I didn't. And then after I had the epidural, I thought, why didn't I do this for every one of them? Because it was so much better. But you know, it didn't feel like I was going to take her home. It didn't, you know, it was harder I didn't have that initial bond with her, like that instant bond, because it's like you're almost guarded, you know. Am I going to be able to take her home? Is there something wrong with her, you know? So it's actually very difficult to, you know, have pregnancies after loss.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because I often think back on that experience for myself, is that I lost trust in my body.
Yeah.
That was like the biggest thing. And I went from being a strict vegetarian to eating meat because I thought it was my diet, and just the amount of anxiety that came into, you know, carrying that next pregnancy was just much heightened. And yeah, so I can see that. And then especially going full term with a child after your experience with Wyatt, and knowing, just having to really re-experience it for the whole first time and rewrite that story just for her then, right? And so then there's that piece too, right?
Yeah. And, in group, I don't know if this is too early to bring this up, but in the group that I facilitate, we had a handful of ladies get pregnant during our loss group time together. And so we started a PALS group for them because of this reason. So PALS stands for pregnancy after loss. And so now we've added that third group to maternal wellness program. We have the postpartum depression, the loss, and then now the PALS group. So you need a lot of support. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm so struck by that contrast, Rachelle, between those people around you who want you to be happy and they're uncomfortable with your grief, and how they're thinking, oh, this person is pregnant now they'll be happy again. Now everything will be okay. Now the problem is resolved. And what the internal life is like, instead, for this woman carrying this anxiety and this grief and hopes and fears about the new pregnancy. And boy, there's just such a difference between the external world and the internal world there.
Yeah. Yeah, the contrast is high, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And almost like a duality. I don't know if you felt like that, Rachelle, but having to keep this face for others and for your family, and then that internal, yeah. So I'm wondering if you still are dealing with that. How old is Claire now? You said 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are some of your, what were some of your biggest stumbling blocks, and are there still stumbling blocks now?
Stumbling blocks as to having another baby, or with loss in general?
I think loss in general. Yeah. Or yeah.
Yeah. So, geez, there's so many stumbling blocks. One of the big ones was losing a piece of myself, and not only grieving my child, but grieving the person that I used to be. I went from an extroverted person to very introverted. And, I had friends who just wanted me to be the same fun person, and I just couldn't be for a long time. And then you start grieving, is that person ever going to return? And it doesn't feel like it for a while. But it has slowly, and I'll never be the same person. But I'm happy with where I'm at right now. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah. That self-identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's always like this like missing piece. It's like losing a piece of yourself, and you can almost feel that there's something not there, like a piece of your heart is actually missing. And that's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah. Well, that heart injury and developing, I love the adage that our scars remind us that we know how to heal, that we can look at them, and that's, I think, what you're talking about, but that it just always is going to be like that it's moving forward with rather than without. Yeah.
Yeah. I was 5 years down the road, and I'm not someone who shows my emotion very often. I've gotten better, but 5 years down the road, we went to a birthday party for my son's, he was a soccer teammate at the time. And, we went to this birthday party and they were having the two boys' birthdays together. So it was him and his younger sibling. And so it was time to, have the cake and sing the songs. And we sang it for, my son's friend. And then we sang it for his brother, and at the end, are you one? Are you two? And they got to 5 and he said, stop. And I lost it. I had to leave. I went and sat in the car. I was crying so hard. Thankfully I was with my husband, but I was also with another friend who knows my story very well and has been there. And so she knew what was going on. And my husband came out to the car after a while and I said, I can't go back in. So we left. And then I got a call from the mom saying, is something wrong? What happened? And I explained it to her. But I remember my husband saying, it's been 5 years and you've never experienced anything like that. And it took you 5 years for something like that to happen, but it just comes out of the blue. And I think a lot of parents talk about how it does, you think everything's great and you're doing this or you're doing that. And all of a sudden it just comes out of the blue and it's unpredictable. And that scares a lot of people, the unpredictability of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We call those grief spurts, I think is what we call them. And that they are, unpredictable. But I loved the way that you didn't say, oh, I'm just going to make this work for the situation, but you really honored yourself and that you also had support and you were open to that support. And I think that is such a beautiful way and healthy way of handling one of those moments where you can never predict that that's going to happen in that moment. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm noticing we could probably talk for a really long time. And I do have another quick question for Claire, and then I think we're probably going to work towards wrapping it up. But I feel like we just started this conversation. I often feel like this on the Facebook programs. But Claire, what advice would you, after hearing all of this and being in this group for so long, what advice would you give someone who is supporting someone who is on that, had that experience, had a child that died?
One of the things that parents have said the most in group, and Rachelle said it before she shared some of Wyatt's story, was that people are afraid to talk about it with me, to mention my child's name, or to bring it up because they think I might cry or they think they might make me sad. And they say, I am always thinking of my child. I'm always thinking of my child, and I always carry their loss with me. So I am actually happy to have an opportunity to hear their name, to speak their name, and to share about my child. So my biggest advice would be to try to overcome your own personal fear and discomfort and invite them to share stories about their child or to tell you more about their child. And then if you're thinking about supporting grieving parents or anyone grieving, it's always nice to suggest specifics rather than to put the burden of asking for help on the grieving person. So instead of saying, call me if you need anything, saying, I'm going grocery shopping Tuesday. What can I add to my list for you? Or I'm coming on Saturday to mow your lawn. But offering specifics that can be refused if it doesn't work for that person. But it just takes that responsibility off of that parent to organize their thoughts and pick up the phone and plan ahead and overcome that social impropriety of asking for help.
Yeah, well, that's
and
great.
Rachelle, I know you've got other ideas too.
Oh, no, that's a big one. I mean, most people will say, let me know how I can help. And most people just aren't going to do it. We live in a culture where, we do everything on our own. And it's hard to ask for help. At least it is for me. So I completely agree. Just tell them, look, I'm going to drop a meal off. I'm going to put it by your doorstep, ring the doorbell, and I'm going to get in my car and leave, or whatever. But that's really what you have to do. And that's really just feels more loving than, how, let me know if I can help you in any way, because also you can be in a fog and not even know how you need the help. You're not thinking about the lawn or this or that. So yeah,
That's good. Good. And I think I just want to add in there too, just listening, just being with, not trying to fix or change, or I know what you need or whatever, but just listening and being with, and even saying, I don't know what to say right now, but I just want to be with you.
that's
Yeah.
a huge thing that comes up from the families. And I always like to say, your family, your friends, they love you very much. But unless they've been through something like this, they don't know what you need. They don't know what to say or do. We have to give them grace. And I think that's why these support groups are so important. And or having a therapist, or having people who just get it and understand and can validate everything you're feeling. And you can tell them things that you can't tell other people because it would be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. That having someone who has walked that path to really be able to understand and to not feel so alone in your experience. Really, really important. Yeah.
Right.
And, this is the way my brain works, is I'm thinking of the things of what not to do too. It's just how sometimes I work. But one thing, Claire, that you would suggest people not do?
Oh gosh, you didn't prepare me for that question.
I'm sorry. It just came up. I know it.
Oh, don't.
You want to think about it?
Yeah, let me think about it for a second. Rachelle, do you have one?
Do you have one?
Well, I think you covered the biggest ones. If you don't know what to say, just be open and say, I don't know what to say. Ask them questions. Do you want to talk about it? They might say no. Maybe, Melissa, you brought up something at the beginning, if you need to turn this off, if you're feeling, if things are too hard and you need to turn this off, do it. And that's what I like about that's the one of the good things about going virtual because of COVID, is that I say that to my people on, online. It's easy for them if something is very triggering and doesn't feel healing to them, they can leave the group a lot easier, but yeah, I think that always asking them what they need instead of saying things like, all the ones that we covered before,
Yeah. Well, and I guess in addition, I was thinking too, is that people, and this happens on cancer journeys also, but people are triggered to tell you stories that they know of other people, and that especially in this experience, I think that that's not a good idea and not helpful. But listening to that person's story is the helpful part of that.
Yeah.
So
and being okay with silence.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. Claire, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think those are all great. I was going to say, don't don't discount anyone's grief. And I think that goes with what you were saying. Don't compare it to other situations or bring up other losses. Just be there and be present with them for their grief.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, well, we're just pushing the bounds of this program today, which is great because this is just such important topic to talk about, and so rich. And so Rachelle, I want to give you a chance to talk about how to connect with that group that you facilitate, and to make sure that people know about that. And then I'll talk about how to connect with Gilda's when you're done. So
Okay.
yeah.
So it's maternalwellnessprogram.org. You can go on there and fill out a form. I'll call you or email you. We have the 3 different groups, whatever you're dealing with. And yeah, I mean, it's as easy as that. And I encourage people to, because for myself, I would have never done it. And it was the concern of my living children that got me to Gilda's Club. And it was the best thing. It was the best thing for me. And then not only did I have the support there, is after that, it opened me up to then finding a therapist finally. And then realizing, wow, like, how is I doing this without, So I think support. I know it's scary, but you got to reach out. My alarm is going off. And also self-care, give yourself a break. It's okay if you don't get all the things done that you want to get done. I just wanted to add that in because it's so important. It took me too long to figure out not to beat myself up because I didn't get all the things done, because I was so much in the thick of grief. Just be kind to yourself. You're in a tough place.
Oh, I love that. Those beautiful words. Thank you. And thank you for being here today and being so willing and to talk about your experience, and compassionate and vulnerable, and sharing Wyatt with us. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So,
It was a pleasure.
yeah, and all the work you do in the community, really important.
Yeah.
Glad you're there.
Guys too. I mean, you've done so much, and I look up to your organization.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We feel pretty honored to do the work we do, don't we, Claire? Yeah, we feel pretty lucky to be here. And thank you, Claire, for joining us, and for all those years that you've been facilitating that group, and holding them in your heart, and giving them a space to be safe and comfortable, and lean into their work. So,
Thanks, Melissa.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Rachelle.
You were huge for me. So, and I know you're a huge piece for a lot of people
Thank
in
you.
what you provide.
It's a gift. It's a gift to get to know people like you and everyone here. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And for all of you out there, thank you for joining us today. If you are new to a perinatal death, or any kind of grief journey, or a cancer journey, and you'd like more information on our free support community, we have lots of different groups, but especially this parent group that we have, and Claire still is facilitating, so there's the facilitator for you. And we meet weekly, and there are groups that are running at exactly the same time in a different part of the clubhouse for the children. So families can come together, and there's different groups for everyone, adult, children, and even 5 and under. We would love to connect with you and help you become a part of our community. You can just call us at Gilda's, or at 453-8300, or look up on our website, gildasclubgr.org. There's a request for information form that you can fill out there, and someone will reach out to you within 24 hours. And we also have a full program of all kinds of other activities that are listed on our website, and both virtually and in person. So we'd love to see you here or on the screen, either way. Yeah. So I think that's all for today. Thank you again, ladies, for joining us and starting this conversation. And if anyone out there has questions, let us know. Otherwise, stay well. Have a safe spring break if you're going on spring break, if you're going anywhere. If you're not, I hope we get some great weather. We can just enjoy being outside. Take care and be well. Bye, everyone.